Thank you for joining us again and welcome back to our channel. In this video, we shall be looking on how the Western miscalculation of Africa is causing a lot of backlash against their interest in the region. The West needs to start respecting local values when engaging with African governments, otherwise anti-Western backlash will intensify beyond what's been seen within the region. Africa, Europe's southern neighbor, is increasingly in the limelight. On the one hand, Western politics fail to foster cooperation and growth in African countries. On the other hand, the media often depicts Africa in a negative way. This lack of political engagement is most often due to lack of knowledge, frequently bordering on the ignorance, and public opinion is affected as a result. News reports show shortcomings rather than opportunities and success in the continent of Africa. Recently, much has been written about both Vice President Kamala Harris touring the continent and Ugandan introducing an anti-LGBTQ law. Africa is undeniably a continent with a bright future. Most of its land, with the exception of the deserts and the Sahel region, has fertile soil, suitable for agriculture and forestry. It is abundant in the natural resources area and is experiencing a demographic boom. This growing population has social and economic significance for Africa and their future. A growing demography enhances the economy, and also children also provide social security. In fact, the primary threat to social security in Western countries is the lack of young people. Moving forward, if you consider foreign powers competing for influence in the region, Africa occupies a vital strategic position between the Indian Ocean and the South Atlantic. The continent has become one of the theaters for the power play between expansionist China and more assertive Russia, and to a lesser extent the traditional European powers and the United States and others. Other countries such as Turkey are also successful increasing their presence and their footprint on the continent of Africa. We have made lots of videos on this particular channel. If you are new here, we encourage you to check the entire channel for you to see more exciting and educating content regards the global African perspective. Without any more delay, let's just dive straight into it. Both the United States of America and Europe attempt to nudge African governance towards specific values, making their support conditional on certain issues. Unfortunately, the traditional European colonial powers have either abandoned Africa or continue to treat it as a paternalistic way. Both the United States and Europe attempt to nudge African governance towards specific values, as we've pointed out, making their support conditional on certain issues. While some of those are advisable, others fail to take into account Africans' culture, self-perception and tradition. This has led Africans to perceive certain actions as neocolonialism. While some of those accusations might be aimed at triggering guilt and also garnering more support, some are also justified. African countries demand the right to choose their own path. China has been funding infrastructural projects that provide African countries with real benefits while refraining from criticizing issues related to governance and values. Beijing's objectives are clear. It offers tangible support, although it is not uncontested locally. In exchange, China gets to expand its political and economic influence, enhancing its geostrategic and also geoeconomic position. Russia primarily focuses on providing military support, either to ruling regimes or successful opposition groups. At first glance, its objectives are similar to China. However, there is another angle. Moscow is significantly involved in the Sahel zone. This region, directly south of the Sahara, faces not only civil wars, coups and terrorist attacks, but also overpopulation and drought. The Kremlin might have an interest in fostering unrest in those resource-rich zones. Europe's supply lines of those minerals, including uranium, could also disrupt and be directed to Russia or through Russian channels. Armed conflict would also intensify pressure on people migration to Europe. Top American politicians such as Vice President Harris regularly tour Africa. Last year, Secretary of State Antony Blinken also visited several African countries. On those trips, both American and European leaders prioritized democracy, inclusion, human rights, and governance. While those are also crucial issues, it is essential as to acknowledge that Africans need to develop those aspects themselves in a manner comparable or compatible with their living conditions and values. Otherwise, there may be strong unintended counter-reactions regards to their approach. The LGBTQ issue is a prime example of an initiative that backfired. Advocating for LGBTQ freedom has been a forefront concern, especially during Mrs. Harris' tour of the region. Meanwhile, Uganda recently enacted a law banning homosexuality and transsexuality, introducing severe punishment. Similar laws already existed in several other African countries, prompting strong protests from Western world, including from the former President Barack Obama. This clumsy approach to promoting Western values will not help the West secure Africa as an ally. Looking ahead, it is not accurate to assume that African cultures are inherently pro or anti-LGBTQ. Often, it is simply not an issue. However, many African leaders and citizens are highly sensitive to Western attempts to impose measures that limit birth rates. Biologically, homosexuality does not limit birth rates. Consequently, this pressure creates a backlash. It can be expected that more Westerners promote LGBTQ rights in those countries, the harsher those resistance will be. The Western policy initiatives are not making life easier for LGBTQ individuals in Africa. To the contrary, in addition to the values, the clumsy approach to promoting Western values will not help the West secure Africa as an ally. The proposed advantages are not substantial enough. Instead of conditional financial support, it will be more helpful to ease trade barriers, especially European ones, for African countries. Adopting more pragmatic policies and discontinuing lecturing will not only improve governance in Africa, but also strengthen the Western positions in the global power competition. This has been an impact with regard to the approach used by Western countries. The Western miscalculation in Africa is causing a lot of impact with regards to their different approach. African countries have their own values. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that their values also transcend other very important issues like good governance and also very important things that will change the life of their own people. In the nutshell, African countries should also engage Western nations, but in terms of their miscalculation looking from the West, this is going to be an issue in the region, and it will cause more backlash as looking at what has happened with France in many French-speaking West African countries. We want to thank you for watching. Hopefully the Western countries could review this particular approach in terms of their miscalculation and approach, and the media in the Western countries could actually report on the huge opportunities and growth and development within the region instead of focusing on ignorance in areas which are less developed, that which will miscalculate again in shaping the relationship with regards to Africa and the West. We want to thank you for watching. We're looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.